Tip number 1. There are a lot of misconceptions out there that suggest that you keep your master channel completely empty, which personally I don't really agree with. So if there's one thing I should put on my master, there's at least this one, the CLA Mixdown. So basically this plugin is designed by Chris Algie and what he usually puts on a master channel. So he has an EQ for the bass and for treble, and also glue, compression, and drive, some distortion. But oftentimes when I use it, I only put it to default. So basically keeping all the levels at 0. And sometimes I do put some more drive or maybe more compression or less compression or anything. You need to hear what your song needs, and that basically comes with experience. So just keep on doing your stuff. Alright, let's just take a listen to what the song sounds like without and with the master effects. So you really notice the difference between the two. Let's jump into the next tip. Alright, so for this next tip, I want to look at the guitars. If you're doing anything live, make sure you record it properly. That means if it sounds good in, it will sound good out. Right, so you can't make a burger with rotten ingredients that actually tastes good, Ugh. Alright, so let's listen to the guitars. Well, so what defines a good sound? Well, basically, no timing issues or pitch issues or anything like that. I was really proud of these guitars and the recorded. My friend is a very good guitarist. He did a great job. Alright, so for this next bit, we want to look at the drums. So what I like to do to drums is basically add some samples to enhance them, especially the kick and the snare. Oftentimes only the kick and the snare. Let's just take a listen to the drums without any samples. Yeah, not really that exciting. Let's add the samples back in and take a listen again. The drum sounds a lot fatter, so when adding samples, make sure you don't, ruin the drums with them. Replace the whole kit or something. I only add in the kick and the snare to bring them forward in the mix. Alright, so have you ever wondered why your mixes sound muddy? Now, there can be a lot of reasons for that, but one of them is usually reverb. And the problem with reverb is that it's often not EQ'd. So I've got this, only dance thingy majiggy. You could hear there when I paused the piano, you could hear that it's actually pretty muddy in the lower mids. So what I've done here is that I put a room reverb, on a separate channel. So I open up to my favorite reverb, Valhalla Vintage, and selected the room reverb, of course. And also, when doing this method, you should put your mix to max. After that, I routed the piano directly to the room. So you can see this knob here, I've adjusted it to taste. I could add more or less. So if we were to EQ this reverb, how would we go about doing that? Well, let's just listen and see. That's a lot better. So as you saw here, I've cut some low end around 70 Hz and some low mids around 250 Hz usually are where the muddiness comes from. And I've also added some top end to make the reverb more brighter. Now if you want to, you could also, use a compressor or a multiband compressor in this case, to make the reverb stand out even more. Because what does a compressor do? It lowers the high parts and boosts the low parts. So let's listen to that. Sounds a lot better than before. Alright, so for the last tip, we're gonna check out some EQing again. So, when dealing with raw samples especially, you need to not be afraid of the EQ. So, oftentimes when you just record it, it does need a lot of help to get to where it needs to be. So let's just listen to these guitars. If you heard, it does need a lot of top end, so especially when it comes to EQing guitars or electric guitars or anything like that. Excuse me. So when it comes to EQing guitars, so I often only boost top ends. So let's just do that. So as you saw, I've just boosted 8K quite a lot, almost 10 decibels. I can actually boost that to 10 because I have OCD. No, I don't. And also some 4K, only a little bit, 3 decibels or so. But here's one thing that, you know, is a misconception from for a lot of people. I've listened a lot to CLA, and following his advice is that actually you should not remove low frequencies from the guitars. Removing low end from guitars actually loses power in the guitars. But you need to be careful with this. If you actually boost too much low end in the guitars, it will fold on itself, especially when using an analog EQ like this one. It folds on itself and it loses the character and all, and that. So let's rewind this. Don't be afraid of the EQ. Just turn it up and see what happens. If it sounds good, it's good. Alright, that's all from me. Hope you learned something from this video, and feel free to subscribe and like, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.